What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. It's a brand new year, but the nights are still dark and cold, so I thought I'd share with you 5 Lego Mocs you can build for free to spice up this bleak month. There's no cost to purchase the instructions, no shipping fees, and no taxes. All you need are the parts in your collection. Sadly, no Gungans are required for any of these. You may be missing some of the pieces needed, but hey, you're all pretty smart, you can figure something out. So if you wish Christmas break lasted until February, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get to building. I'm starting off with a classic Clone Wars vehicle, the true workhorse of the Republic Army, the ATRT. This thing can move and jump in ways that just shouldn't be possible with those spindly little legs, but hey, this is Star Wars. Apparently just about everything is hops, from walkers to angry old men. ATRTs show up in just about every Clone Wars battle at some point. They serve as sort of an armored cavalry, able to charge enemy lines quickly and provide light armored support to the front lines and get into places a larger vehicle can't. I figured this versatile walker would be a great build to include in today's challenge, since just about any Star Wars mock builder, whether you do large or small mocks, can use a good ATRT design. This one was made by Marius 2002 on Rebrickable. The reason I picked Marius's build over the other options is because I felt it best matched what I was looking for. Using only 73 pieces, most of which are really easy to source, I figured this would be something a lot of people could build, plus it looks just like the actual walker, especially in the legs, unlike a certain ATRT design we all know and laugh at. So far, the build has been pretty smooth. I did make some modifications, first with the foot. This clip wouldn't stay connected to the foot because of the angle it was at, so I slapped a 1x1 modified plate on top for the clip to connect to, and now they fit together great and have a lot more mobility. The next mod is in the cockpit area. Marius built it so you would need to build special legs so the driver can fit lower down on the walker. I thought this was a clever idea, but I prefer to have unmodified figs in my build, so I added an extra round 1x2 plate and kept this area open so a minifig has room to sit down. I wasn't sure what to expect with this build at first. I didn't know how I was going to fit an unmodified fig in it, and Marius said they haven't physically built it, so I wasn't sure if the legs could hold up the body. But they're plenty strong, as you can see, and will hold all kinds of poses without falling over, which is pretty impressive. This next one is the mock I am the most excited about, and the whole reason this video came to be. I was randomly recommended a video at the end of last year, and the thumbnail immediately caught my attention. It appeared to be 2 smaller scale Jedi Interceptors, and I was immediately hooked. The ETA 2 Actis class Interceptor just might be my favorite ship in Star Wars. I love the unique design, and Anakin's Jedi Interceptor was the first Lego Star Wars set I ever bought, so this ship is very nostalgic to me. But as you've probably noticed, I never use them in mocks, and one reason is they're just too bulky. Trying to fit a Lego Interceptor into anything that isn't a giant landing pad is like trying to squeeze Jabba the Hutt into a pair of skinny jeans. It's almost impossible, and the end result is not pretty. There are a lot of cool custom options out there, but most are based around the molded Interceptor cockpit, so they end up being around the same size as the set. I noticed the Interceptor in the video was using a much smaller cockpit piece, and one I'd never seen used before, so this gave me hope that this was going to be a much smaller build. The video was made by Boffman Bricks, and the build is a combination of his, Cosmox, and No One Likes Cherry's designs. This build is pretty complex and not one I'd recommend for beginners. It also uses a lot of 1x1 and 1x2 bracket plates, so be prepared to dip into your parts collection and maybe cannibalize a couple old sets. It's about time you took apart a couple of those sequel sets anyways. The wings come together in 2 sections of snot brick, which I was really happy about since I love a ship that has snot wings. It just looks so smooth and realistic. I was expecting some fragility with this build, and it can break easily while you're putting it together, but once the sections start connecting to each other, it gets much stronger. I'm building the blue version we see Obi-Wan use at the end of Revenge of the Sith, since that's my favorite version and I already built a red one. I did need to modify the S-foils since I couldn't find the pieces used in the instructions in dark blue, but these 2x3 wedge plates work just as good. The S-foils do open and close, which is a must for an Interceptor build. The wings were definitely the hardest and most piece-intensive section of the build. The ship is separated into 3 parts, the body and 2 wings, which is nice. I love a good modular build. Now I just need to finish up the smaller stuff like the cannons and cockpit canopy. That area is a little rough looking, but we'll talk more about it later. I wanted my Interceptor to be more movie accurate, so I had added an extra headlight brick on the left wing so I could include a little Republic logo next to the astromech droid, and on the back I used a couple of trans blue studs to light up the rear thrusters. This thing is an absolute beauty. It's much closer to minifig scale and smaller than the Lego set, but still big enough to look like a full-size ship and not a microfighter. It's got a lot of detail and play features for how small it is, with my favorite feature being the foldable landing gear underneath. It's not perfect, however. The cockpit is smaller than the actual ship, but given the limited amount of windscreen pieces available, I think this is the best option for doing a smaller build. There are a lot of gaps between the windscreen and the blue pieces, which is supposed to be kind of like a airtight area, which just doesn't look very good. Luckily, it's only noticeable from certain angles. All things considered, I think this is a great option for mocks or a shelf display. Once again, we have another build that can be easily recolored for various Jedi. You could even recolor one in dark green if you're tired of Master Yoda flying this Duplo build of a ship around. I know he's small, but why'd the Jedi Order have to do him dirty like this? This next Moc is a Coconut original and the only non-vehicle in the video. I wanted to include a smaller accessory build that would only need a small amount of pieces. Now it may be small, but it packs a big punch and is none other than the Eweb Cannon I designed for my Battle of Magneto Moc. First, let's address the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about the mountain of candy wrappers for my stocky. This thing is much bigger than minifig scale. I tried to build as small as I could, but you can only go so small and still include the details you want. Plus I figured, who's gonna complain about a tripod mounted gun being too big? That's like saying your last work bonus was too big and you want less money. The cool thing about this build is, unlike the last two, you can use this for prequel or original trilogy Mocs. We've seen Eweb Cannons in action from the Christophsis campaign to the Battle of Hoth, though I'm not sure about the sequels, but I'm sure somehow the Eweb Cannon returns in those too. I wanted to capture as many features of the gun as I could. The barrel was pretty easy to recreate, and one thing you can't deny about this build is it never skips leg day. I don't have much to say about this one. It's so small you can build it just by pausing the video to see how it comes together. It is nice to have some kind of small build that isn't a vehicle or structure that can add some detail and storytelling to a Moc. Often, the bigger types of builds are the main focus of a Moc, but little stuff like this can help with world building and help fill out the scene better. Plus, who doesn't want to build a machine gun nest with one of these bad boys laying down some suppressive fire? This next one is a familiar sight to those following my Building Mimban series. If you want to check that out, hit up the Mimban playlist on my channel. This is LEGO Provo Bricks ATDT, or All-Terrain Defense Turret. What a wonderfully impractical walker. Star Wars weapon designing at its finest. Slapping a massive artillery cannon on two legs and sending it charging into battle with the infantry is a sure way to make sure the artillery support is never far behind. I really dig the World War II Star Wars vibe going on here. Kinda reminds me of another walker I've been using in Mocs. This Moc uses a lot of your standard light bluish gray walker type pieces and has a solid amount of detailing for being a smallish build, even on the underside, which you don't see as much. I really appreciate that, because when I see a designer putting an effort into a part of the build that won't really be visible, I know they were invested into what they were building and it's going to turn out good. The legs come together in 3 sections, connected together by hinge joints, which is good to have this much articulation because, as you'll see in a bit, leg mobility is very important. The feet are wide and have lots of anti-studs on the bottom for securely connecting to the ground. I found this model a long time ago while shopping for a good ATDT design I could use. I was drawn to this one because of its scale. It's not super big. Early on in my Moc building journey, I was all about using massive gunships and vehicles in my Mocs, but as time has gone on, I've started to prefer smaller stuff. It's easier to include them in builds, and the vehicles don't look as out of place or overcrowd the Moc. The only downside is the cannon doesn't move on its own, so you have to raise and lower it by repositioning the legs, which, depending on the elevation, can look a little goofy. We've arrived at the final Moc of the video, and to this day is one of the best custom Mocs I've ever had the pleasure of building. Mr. Idler's Trade Federation AAT. This was actually the first custom design I ever built way back in 2020 when I was doing my large-scale Battle of Naboo Moc. I built 3 and they were far and away one of the coolest parts of the Moc. This model is a lot of fun to build and is designed almost to perfection, capturing so many of the features and details of the Trade Federation AAT. He used a decent amount of the pieces from the OG AAT that came out in 1999, like the large quarter round bases with the missile tube printing on them and the round engine looking things on the sides, as well as the arms and housing for the secondary cannons. That's probably the only downside to this Moc, is it has a lot of very specific pieces that can be pricey and hard to find considering they only ever came in one set, but that's what Bricklink's for. For how small it is, Mr. Idler managed to include 2 interiors. The first is this driver's cockpit, which has a seat with some controls that can fit a B-1 battle droid. It slides into and connects to the rear of the body via a peg. The turret is a series of small chunks that come together to form the sides and rear with a barrel at the front. The whole tank is very modular and can be disassembled and reassembled very quickly for transportation or storage. I was very appreciative that he built it in a way that you can move the barrel up and down on its own. There is a little open space inside the turret where you can fit the top half of a battle droid peering out to observe its surroundings or to yell at a pesky Gungan hanging on the main gun. I mean, what can I even say about this tank? I've gushed about it for years now, and what can I tell you that your eyes can't see for themselves? Once again, this is a little smaller than the Lego set, making it much easier to build and display. I keep talking about these Mocs being smaller than sets, and it's not always that they have less pieces, just more compact and scaled better so they take up less space. This is a great option for any Trade Federation Moc, especially because the last 10 AAT Lego gave us is just a couple steps above a microfighter. What better way to kick off the new year than with a bunch of new Mocs to build. I've been using some of these for a while, but I'm really excited to implement the new ones, especially that Jedi Interceptor. I want to take a second and thank all the designers for taking the time to make instructions for these vehicles. That requires a lot of time and effort, and to go a step further and release them for free is very kind. If you can, take a second to check out the pages of these builders to show them some support. That's a wrap for this video. Don't forget to let me know which one of these builds is your favorite in the comments, and until next time, happy building.